Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Alexis Flowers, and I'm the Director of Programs here at NEW. This week, as most of you should know, is our annual Professional Development Week, where we have focused on programming and content to help the women in our network advance in the workplace. So lots of good content this evening or this week. And this evening, we have a session on a topic that I am very excited about: workplace etiquette in a post-COVID world. So yes, fun topic. Joining us this evening is Ms. Patricia Rauch, Vice President of Member Programs at the National Association of Wholesaler Distributors. She is the former Director of Career Programs at Leadership Institute, so many of you may recognize her from her role there. Under her leadership, that division hosted dozens of trainings and performed hundreds of career consultations per year. Her team managed the intern program as well as aspects of Conservative Jobs, the Institute's free job placement website. Prior to that position, she served as the Institute's Director of Political and Online Programs, where she created and managed all political trainings, as well as the online production and distribution of allied programs and materials. During her early days at LI, she served as the Deputy Director of Grassroots, where she was responsible for identifying, recruiting, and training conservative leaders and activists across the country. She has a background in campaigns and grassroots organizing, spending time working on national, state, and local campaigns. Thank you for being with us this evening, Patty.
I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, wonderful. So for our format, for everyone viewing in, we are going to flip things over to Patty. She's going to share a presentation, and then we are going to open it up to questions. So please feel free to type your questions in the chat. Just make sure that you are typing it to everyone so we can all see them, and then we'll get to them after she's done. So there we go. Take it away, Patty.
All righty. Well, thank you for tuning in, everyone. I see Alice, who was one of my former interns, is tuning in all the way from Front Royal. So Alice, it's good to reconnect. Alice got to be a part of our office at Leadership Institute last summer, and that was really the first foray back into a professional setting. And as the pandemic was starting to see a return to normalcy, so to speak. And I have to say that being almost a year removed from that time is that was not normal. And people are starting to settle into what working professionals were used to before the pandemic, but with some adjustments. And the adjustments are actually really welcome. And I'll go through them all and talk to you all. I'm assuming that almost everyone tuning in today is a young professional. If you are a more seasoned professional, this presentation is geared more towards those newer in the workforce. However, there are things that are good refreshers, things that I've learned in the ways that I have adapted to this new normal. I don't think that we're ever going to go back to the old ways entirely. There are some really good changes that we have, and I'm excited to talk about them. So first thing, is Patty May considered a professional? Some people would say yes. Other people would say, I'm unsure. She likes to joke around a lot, but when it comes down to it, when I have to be a professional, I am extremely professional. I pride myself on getting the job done, but also allowing my personality to shine. So I'll joke around a lot. You're going to notice through the presentation that there's some things that you've probably never seen in a presentation before, but you can get to that. When you get to that point in life where you can put those things in a presentation, you are at the height of professionalism because other people are inviting you to share this type of information with them. What gives her expertise on the subject? Trial and error. I started my career and I think back on how unprofessional I was when I thought that I was presenting myself very much as a professional, whether it be coworker relations, whether it be getting stuff done on time, attention to detail, the way that I would interrupt conversations, the way that I would talk over people, which I work on still. But I have learned from really, really good people who have taken me under their wing and they've given me advice and I have taken it to heart. And I hope that tonight's presentation or this afternoon, whatever time zone you're tuning in from, is also something that you take to heart and You might agree with all of it, you might agree with some of it, but hopefully you take away some new information that will help you in the workplace. What environments has she worked? Currently I work at a trade association, which I am creating programs for the CEOs and their direct reports of billion-dollar companies, Fortune 500 and Fortune 200 companies. If you had told me when I was working on a campaign where most of the people subsisted on a diet of Red Bull and cigarettes, that someday I would be creating these programs, I never would have believed you, but your career trajectory will lead you into really interesting places. So I have to be a very buttoned up person when I am dealing with these people. They're very serious people, they are successful people, and most of all, they're very smart people. And you're going to get to realize the more and more you go along in your career that the smarter the individuals are, the more they're looking for professionalism until you get comfortable with each other. And then you can really start to let personalities and familiarities show themselves. And this is a question I get a lot. Is she a real blonde? The roots would tell you the answer is no. So it was a decision I made during the pandemic. It's a personal decision that every woman who starts to get gray hairs has to make for themselves. And I don't know if I'm sticking with it, but professionalism dictates that I have to make a decision soon, because these roots are not going to present themselves well when I have my billion-dollar direct report roundtables in Chicago next month. So a decision has to be made soon. At the end of this, I would appreciate any of your input. So personal presentation, we're going to go over different things: personal, email, etiquette, in-person interaction. So first one, we're going to do your personal presentation, what you're showing to your coworkers and those who you are work with. So I like to start with sweet sweatpants girl. Throughout the pandemic, we're working from home, we're comfortable, you're entering the workforce, maybe in college that you were athleisure wear is the way to go, but you can't show up to work in those things. Some people are trying to pass off leggings as pants in a professional work setting. Now, if you work at a very casual place, you might be able, the boyfriend shirts are really in style now, so you wear a tunic or something that's a little bit roomy. It goes over your bum. Leggings, maybe leggings under a dress, great. Leggings as pants where you're showing, where your waist is visible, all that, don't do it. It's far too casual. This is a good one too. So we all got used to working from home, cooking. I became a pandemic chef. I became a pandemic farmer. I don't even want to talk about it. The dirt underneath my nails situation was not a good thing. But did you recently cook food with a lot of garlic? So you're coming into work. The smells that you are used to in your home are not smells that your new coworkers are going to be used to. So the things you need to be very aware of that. Like, okay, are my clothes fresh? Are they laundered? Do I need to bring them to the dry cleaner? Is that you want to present yourself in a way, but you also don't want to spray a ton of perfume. That's another thing, is that nobody wants to smell their coworkers coming before they hear them coming, right? So don't be that person. Some people overuse perfume. You may love that bottle of whatever you're wearing, your Chanel number 5. It's so classy. You wear it when you go out to fancy dinners, but you do not want to wear it to work. And so everybody knows, oh, there's Patty, right? Although my perfume of choice is whatever Bath and Body Works spray that I see lying around. But you don't be that person. Another thing, this is a personal hygiene thing. Weird, it doesn't look like it's snowing. So sometimes you get a little dandruff. You haven't been washing your hair as often because you don't have to go to work every day. You're not showing up to lots of events. So you finally tried that out, the thing that you heard everyone talk about where it's, I don't wash my hair every day. I go like 5 days in a row. Well, here's the deal, is that if you're not used to that, your scalp changes, the oils change. You got to get the dry shampoo. You may be using too much of it and you get buildup. You need to change up your hair routine or or whatever you're doing with it to make sure that it is presentable, that you're presenting as clean, tidy, whatever hair texture you have, just make sure that it looks nice and professional. I'm not going to dictate what a professional hairdo is for you and your taste. in your work setting. But the people who you report to can help you figure out, like, is pink hair acceptable? Some places, probably, if you work at a more libertarian leaning place, is that they're going to say, let your creativity fly. But if you're working on Capitol Hill, they might say it's a bit distracting and we're going to need you to cover it up completely. So these are discussions you have with your manager where you're working. Another thing with clothing, did you sleep in that? One of the best things from working from home was waking up 5 minutes before you had to start your day and just rolling over to the computer. I got used to it. I'm not going to lie. I loved it, right? It was a no problem whatsoever. I got my leggings on. I'll just throw a cardigan over whatever I'm wearing or a blazer so it looks professional. But you can't just do that going into the regular office setting. So what I did this year is that I decided to train myself to wake up at 6:45. At 6:45, I'm a lollygagger, classic waster of time. I like to fiddle on my phone. There's TikToks that people sent me after I fell asleep. I got to watch those. I have to do my Wordle. I have to do my Quirtle. I have to do my Octordle, right? Is that all the different games? I do them all. And I like doing them in the morning. Then I read the news. I check my email. And then I look and I say, oh no, I need to leave in 20 minutes. But during the pandemic, it would be like, oh, not a big deal. But if you're going to an actual office setting, you have to make sure that you are presenting well. So what I say is that on the weekend or whenever you have free time, make sure that you get all of your clothing that you're going to wear for the week. Make sure that it's, I'm not saying get out an iron or bring it to the dry cleaner every week to make sure that everything is freshly pressed. That's ridiculous. Nobody has time for that, or the money, so to speak, either, because a dry cleaner is really expensive. But I would get everything out, make sure that things are hung up. If something is wrinkly, a good thing to do in the morning, if you're running out of time, throw a damp towel in with it into the dryer if you have a dryer in your apartment or your home, wherever you're living, and just throw it on tumble dry low for like 10 minutes. And it should get the wrinkles out of most things. I learned that trick from my husband, who has to wear a full suit every day, and he's dressed to the nines every single day. No one would know that he used the dryer to get all the wrinkles out of his dress shirt that morning. It works. It's very presentable, and everyone remarks on how professional he looks every single day. Here's another one. Are you headed to the club later? Just curious with that hemline. I'll be the first to admit, I gained weight during the pandemic. Some of the things that we used to wear aren't necessarily fitting that great. They're not making us feel our best. Don't put it on just because that's all you have to wear. Is that there are other options. Wear the same thing 2 days in a row if it fits properly. Honestly, that's way better than making someone judge you based on how short your skirt is or how short your dress is, or if your shirt's too tight. If you the bust of a button-up shirt, sometimes the buttons pull. Is that, don't put yourself through that. Honestly, wear the same thing 2 days in a row than putting on something that fits incorrectly, because people will judge you. It's not fair. Nobody wants to gain weight. Nobody's focused on that. But that's, instead, it's like, make sure that you're feeling your best and you're presenting your best. I'm not telling you lose weight, not at all, because I don't think that that's a proper thing for anyone to tell anyone. What I'm saying is just make sure that you're wearing something that fits you properly. And if that means heading over to Target and going on the clearance rack and buying a nice shirt and a cardigan, and that's what you have to wear until you get to the point where you can afford more clothes or whatever it is that you want to do that. Just make sure, I'd rather you buy a $5 sweater and wear that every single day and making sure that it smells nice and it's looking fresh and clean and pressed, than watching you try to suffer through something that doesn't fit you well. And then, beach, please. The weather is going to get really nice. And a lot of young women unfortunately fall into the trap of thinking that clothes that you can wear in a casual setting, if you're going out in the sun on the weekends, you're going to spend the day on the National Mall, or you're going out on a boat on the weekend, whatever it is you may be doing, is appropriate for the workplace. Thin strap things, not appropriate for the workplace. if you have a nice summer dress though, you can throw a blazer or a cardigan over it. That's totally fine. Just make sure that you're not dressing like you're going for an outing with your friends when you are actually going to present at that big meeting, right? Or you have an important meeting with your boss, or you have a review coming up and your boss is thinking about like, can I actually give this person a raise and give them more responsibilities where they're going to be interacting with more people outside of the organization or the office. And part of that is how you present yourself in your personal presentation. So if you just keep it tight and polished, it's going to be awesome. Most of my clothes are on sale. I do not spend a lot of money on my stuff, and I think that I look professional and good whenever I go do something. And if I'm wearing something that is not great, I can feel it, and I'm not presenting my best, and I don't feel as professional as I should. Workspace. This is a big one, right? So we're used to, if you could see the desk that I'm sitting at in our office at my house, it is like Diet Coke cans. I have empty Gatorade bottles, little ones. There's like a paper plate that I had eaten toast off of yesterday morning. It's just not really nice. But you know what I don't have at work? The same type of space. This is not it's not your bedroom. It's not, because a lot of people are working from their bedroom, right? This is not your office. This is not the corner of your living room where you were working from during your remote time in college, or your remote time during your first job after college. You want to make sure that you remember that the space is something that other people see. So I would be embarrassed if my coworkers saw this, but I don't have to worry about that because they're never coming over to my house and seeing this space. Also, I'm going to clean it up. Don't worry. But I will have at my office is that everything's clean, everything's tidy, is that I have things organized into folders, et cetera, et cetera. Just make sure that you can try to have that type of space. A Zoom background can't hide everything, right? So you may still be doing Zoom meetings, and you will still do a lot of Zoom and team meetings, even when you are back in the office in person. But a Zoom background can't hide what you look like. It can't hide things from your coworkers. So just be cognizant of that. Is that I have this really sweet Zoom background, but if it wasn't working, if someone calls me on Google Meet, I can't use the Zoom background. So I need to make sure that what's behind me is going to look good on whatever platform someone requests a meeting for. Leave your house. If, like I said, I became a pandemic farmer, meaning that I started to grow vegetables in my backyard in small grow bags and planters. But if you got into that, you got into plants, a lot of people bought a lot of plants, bring them with you to work. Is that surround yourself with things that made you comfortable during the pandemic and bring that into the workplace, because you're spending more time away from home. It's an adjustment for a lot of people. So make your space at work yours, and a space where you want to be and you're proud to be in. Creative coziness. This is another one. So there are people so I love wearing flip-flops, right? I have Croc flip-flops. They're hideous. People think that they're ugly, but they are so comfortable. And I love walking around in them. I would never wear them to work because they're inappropriate for the workplace. I really like wearing slippers, right? And slippers are really comfy. You are probably like a majority of women. I am not one of these people but you may be freezing all the time. And the thought of wearing slippers just sounds so cozy and it sounds so nice. Maybe having a blanket or something, right? You're like, I just want to wrap myself up and be warm, because the true war on women is happening this summer in office buildings across the country, where the air conditioning blasts and you freeze and everybody else is content, but you are trying to figure out. Alice knows, because Alice sat beneath one of the air conditioning units at LI. So your creative coziness is, if you want to bring a pair of slippers that you have underneath your desk, you can take your shoes off and put them on when you're at your desk, when you're sitting there. If you want to have a pashmina or a small throw blanket that kind of looks like a pash or a wrap, bring that with you to work and have it and wrap it around you, put it on your lap, whatever it may be. Just, you're not going to bring a comforter to work. You're not going to bring a quilt to work, but there are ways to have a coziness and a warmth that reflects the way that you were comfortable at home in the workplace in an appropriate manner. What's that smell? Same thing, your workspace. Some people like candles. Some people, it's, ooh, I love my air fresheners. Well, that's great, but not everyone is going to love that smell. The best smell in an office setting is no smell. The next best smell is a Capri Blue candle from Anthropology. But again, there's people who are not going to like that either. If you really need something that smells nice, a trick is bring in a dryer sheet and put it in one of your desk drawers. It'll give you a fresh scent in your workspace area, but it's not going to overpower the entire office. And then they can hear you. Is that you may have your earbuds in, right? If you're in a shared group setting space where it's cubes, or the Google has the open floor plan without assigned desks and you just go sit down wherever you are, is that your coworkers can hear you. They can hear you eat. They can hear you drink. They can hear you talking on the phone. It's just be aware of that and have self-awareness, because it's going to annoy you. Sorry, my dog just walked in the door. I had the door closed, but she's crazy. So if you hear a jingling or a bark or a sniff, it's a dog and not a human being that I have behind me. So just make sure that you're aware that people can hear whatever you're doing. Email etiquette. I am very excited that I got to use this here, which reading up on the way Gen Z uses emails and the creativity that is involved with emails, that these are 3 actual sign-offs that people have used in corporate emails, which is hasta la pasta, talk later loser, or sorry for existing. Self-deprecation, funny ways that people may speak. I would not use that when you are first starting out in whatever job you're doing. There are a lot of people who do not understand this. They're going to be offended by it. They're going to be taken aback, and they're going to think this young woman is not ready for prime time. Keep it more formal, simple, thank you, sincerely. Those types of sign-offs are great, and they'll never steer you wrong. Formalities might be a good idea. You're probably going to have an intuition to call people Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. or yes, ma'am, yes, sir. When you meet people, like your boss, other people in the company, but basically talk to your manager, ask your manager how they'd like to be addressed, and then ask them, how should I address this person over here? Do they prefer being called Mr.? Do they prefer being called Ms.? I am from the North, and it was jarring to me when people would say yes, ma'am, or no, ma'am. It made me feel like I was a grandmother, because this is not the way that we were brought up to speak. It's because we're rude up north, right? It's that we're not lovely Southern belles, and I wish that I had grown up with that that type of thinking and formalities. But it's err on the side of a formality, and then figure out the correct way and the preferred way that someone would like to be addressed. Some people call me Miss Roush, thank you so much. So some of you may send a thank you email after this and say, Miss Roush, thank you so much for your talk, blah, blah, blah. Please call me Patty. I'm giving you all permission to call me Patty. Is that there's no reason to have that formality. And this way we can have a conversation. Once you get past the first formality and someone says first name basis, is that it elevates you a bit more in your professionalism, and also the respect that your coworkers and your colleagues are showing you, is that you're playing in the same sandbox. It's a level playing field, and you're welcome to be a part of it, and we're happy that you're here. And that is why I like the Adopt a Boomer program. An Adopt a Boomer program is, and I should clarify, I'm not a boomer, but my parents are. An Adopt a Boomer program is when you go and befriend, maybe find a mentor-mentee relationship with someone who is more established in the office. I'm not going to say older, because it's not necessarily an age thing, but it's someone who's established in their career and who knows the answer to all of these questions that you probably are going to have. And they even have answers to questions that you don't know to ask yet. You want to befriend these people, adopt them as your Sherpa as you learn the ins and outs of professionalism in your office or work setting. one of the things that they may teach you right away, and there are people, not necessarily just people who are new in their career post-pandemic, is the reply versus reply all function. This is very important. If someone sends an email to several people and is just asking for an answer back, you can reply just to them. But if everyone should know the answer, then you reply all. If you want to learn more about reply versus reply all, please send me an email and I will teach you the ins and outs, because it is the one thing that sets people apart immediately in my mind, is if they know when it is appropriate to reply or reply all. And then finally, like Slack, Teams, email channels, Basecamp, help me. There's so many things that they're expecting you to learn and communicate on, is that figure out how to use each one. And so Basecamp is a project management software. There are channels within Teams. Slack is another, it's a messaging platform, and there's different, email is the way people communicate and they're used to communicating. Figure out ways. So as someone who's newer to the workforce, you can steer the culture of your company into a different direction if you think there's a better way that everyone can communicate. And this is a really important way that you can contribute to your organization or your company or your office immediately, is that I've noticed that there's a lot of emails that exist when we could move this over to Slack or Teams chat, that we can figure things out a lot faster. Or this is an old school tactic, but sometimes you can actually stand up from your chair and walk over to someone's office and knock on their door and say, hey, I'd like to run this by you. This is something that people seem to have forgotten is possible. And I've noticed this in my new office, is that people are used to emailing everything. And it's we can also, there's a thing called a telephone that people pick up. I know it actually works to talk on, not just texting, but you can pick up a telephone as well to communicate. Is that you don't just need to use these ways of communicating. It's not just written word. You need to learn how to present yourself in a speaking way, on the phone or in person. And if you're going to go to someone's office, just do a quick knock. Hey, I'm wondering if you have a few minutes. I have an idea I want to run by you, or I'd like to clarify something with you, whatever it may be. Is just be mindful that you may be interrupting them. And if they say, oh, I don't have time right now, you can follow up with, I'll check your calendar to see if there's a time that fits better for you. And can I book that time? And they probably say, oh yeah, that's totally fine. That's the way I would do it. If they say, get out of here and don't come back, then I don't know what to say, but you might want to start looking for a new job. Because that doesn't sound like a fun place to work. In-person interactions is what we're bringing to. So is the pen era really over? Is the pandemic actually done with? Some people would say no. Dr. Fauci loves telling us that it's not over. I would say that a majority of Americans have probably said we're done with this, and we want to have a normal existence. We don't want to live in a bubble at home and just stay home and not live our lives. But you need to recognize that some people, they are still very much in the pandemic, and their mindset is in the pandemic. So they may like take themselves back a bit if you talk to them close, or if you walk in their space. Some people may insist on wearing masks still to an all staff meeting. They'll show up to the all staff meeting, but they're wearing a mask. That's their business and none of yours, whatever it may be. So it's remembering that we are respectful of our colleagues and we expect the same respect back from them. So we're not going to get respect unless we give respect. So it's just be cognizant of that. Sometimes there's tricky words that I have to say. And all will be good. Here's another thing. You're a whole vibe. We all know someone who is a lot, right? It's like, this is a whole thing going on right here. If you are that person, and I think that many people are capable of being that type of person, just tone it down a bit in the office. Is your personality can shine through once you get to know your coworkers a little bit more, right? It's not you just want to make sure that you are, I'm saying if you're a loud person, be quiet like a church mouse, right? And if you're an extrovert, that you you can't talk to anybody because you're going to suck the energy out of every room that you walk into. It's more so it's just whatever it is, take it down a few and test the waters, see what's going on. And then as you get to know people and they get to know you and that mutual respect is given, is that you're going to be more comfortable in people and getting to know each other and all will be okay. This is for my TikTok fans who have seen the TikTok where the man says, this is how you attract a mate or whatnot. And it's look at them. Now look away. Now look down. Now look up, smile, look away again. And okay, it's creepy, right? Is that it's very uncomfortable. This is a thing where there are a lot of people, and this is not just a woman thing. This is a lot of people who don't realize that they're staring. They don't realize that they have a face that may not look very friendly when they are just thinking. We all know what people call it. But if you have that, when you go into the office, so on a Zoom call, like all of you may have the stare when you're like, and you don't even realize you're doing it. And I can't see that you're doing it. But if we were in an all staff meeting or if we were in an in-person training, I could see you doing this. And I would be like, that person hates me. Like they really are not enjoying themselves at all. And I want to make sure that you're aware that if you do that other people are going to notice in the office. So you just have to be very, again, mindful that you do that and don't do it anymore. Or have a work buddy where you say, hey, listen, I have a tendency to make this face and I don't realize that I'm doing it. It's just the way I look. But if you see me doing it, give me a little nudge and I'll try to not look that way. I'm not saying smile all the time and perform for me, right? That's not what it is. It's more so don't look like you hate everyone and that you're having the worst time of your life. That's all. Is that a neutral face is better than, right? It's like I can make some ugly faces. Boundaries are good. You may have people who there are a lot of people who truly miss the interaction between themselves and other individuals, and they may overstep their bounds and they may latch onto you, right? But it's okay to not answer text messages from your coworkers outside of office hours. It's okay to not answer the phone when you know they're not calling you for work purposes. Is that setting boundaries where you work is a really good thing because you want to be happy as well. And you should also be aware that other people might be setting boundaries with you. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that they dislike you. It means that they love themselves enough to know where they have to draw the line for their own mental health or whatever it may be. Again, that's none of your business what it is. But don't get offended by it. Familiarity is not good. So some people act like they've known someone their entire life, right? Is that and they talk to them and they tell them things about their lives that they probably should not be telling them. And they ask questions about their lives that they probably should never be asking. And it's this weird thing where I would expect that from someone I've known for a while, but probably not from someone who I don't know very well. So don't be overly familiar. And then the millennials have carved this path for you. Millennials have dealt with all of these things because millennials know what an analog life is like offline, and they remember their parents or their grandparents and their office jobs and what that was like before everyone had computers and internet. So they've seen the transition and they see the changes and how offices have changed. For me, things have changed exponentially in the past 18 years, just from my first job to now. One, very few people had cell phones. When I first started, it was a cell phones. Smartphones did not exist when I started working. Like imagine that, a world without a smartphone. So we didn't have the internet in our hands. We actually had to go to a computer. Laptops were not a big thing. It was all desktop, so you couldn't bring your work with you in places. So find a millennial who is one of your coworkers and just ask them, say, how has things changed? How do you see things changing? Is there anything that was hard for you to get used to? Because it's each generation comes about, things change rapidly. And it's really cool, but it's also cool to learn about how things were before. Back in the 20th century, in the 1900s, as they say. This is, I'm almost done. I know that I'm going a little bit over with the presentation. So fulfilling commitments and responsibilities. These are some excuses that are stereotypes of Gen Z. I am not saying that they are correct in any way, and I'm not saying that they are representative of any young woman who I have ever interacted with who is a member of New. But this is going to be a bias that some managers are going to have against a younger generation. It is entirely unfair to you, but I want you to be aware of it so you can prove them wrong. You're going to say, oh, I know what you're thinking about my generation and probably me. And I'm going to show you that this is not the way that I think, and this is not the way that I act. So I'm wholly uninterested because I get no fulfillment. It's a stereotype that Gen Z will only do things if they have self-fulfillment out of anything. Why do people think that? It's because those are the stories that are written about in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, right? It's the extremes. And that's unfair to say. So instead it's just I'm gonna put my nose down and I'm gonna get this work done, and I'm gonna prove to you that I'm worthy of your respect, right? It's about gaining that respect in the office. And I'm going to show you that I am worthy of more responsibilities. Other thing is I have a thing, so I can't get to it. I have a vacation. There's this thing that I really want to go to. Oh, I have to leave early because there's a concert I'm going to. Is that those things are usually that are earned. I have no problem with people who work for me going to their commitments, things that they really want to do, but I don't have a problem with it because they've proven to me that they're getting their work done, right? Is that I don't care if you work 30 hours or 80 hours. I mean, I care if you're working 80 hours because that's entirely too many hours, and we have to talk about time management and getting to things. But if you can get things done in 30 hours, that's totally fine. Go have fun. Like, take off a half a day. I know that you have your phone, and if I have to email you or contact you, then I can and you'll answer it, but go do this. That isn't my job crowd. That's so nerve-wracking, especially now for companies and organizations who are lacking a full staff. So people have to do double duty just to make things going. You should be compensated for that, for doing the extra work. If you aren't, then you should walk as well. And there's a reason why that place isn't hiring the people that they need to. But saying that isn't my job isn't going to win you any friends, and it's certainly not going to gain you any respect. Nobody expected this when I was remote. You're going to have things that you do that you weren't doing when you were remote, because things change when you go back in the office, right? Is that if you work in a programmatic role, things were all virtual and that was fine, but then you have in-person programs that you're doing, and that's a whole new ballgame, right? It's like now you have to do specs for it. You need to get how is the room going to be set up? How are we going to order food, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, there's a lot more responsibilities when you go in person, whatever you're doing. Just be open to that. Do everything with a smile and say, oh, this is exciting. I get to learn how to do something new. Why is everything a meeting? I wish I could answer this question for you. Meetings are the bane of my existence. I literally have 7 meetings a day on average. They're anything 15 minutes to half hour to an hour. It is a lot. But that's what happens when you have a hybrid workforce and you have fewer meetings when you go in person and everyone's there. So if you hate meetings, go work somewhere where everyone's in person. If you love meetings, and you then work somewhere where it's a hybrid workforce or everyone's remote, because you have to do those, because you lose your interaction with the popping into someone's office. And that's why people end up having meetings. And then Outlook is your friend. I live and die by my Outlook calendar. If I have an obligation that I have to send an email or I have to follow up with somebody on something, I put reminders in my Outlook. And so I have I give myself a deadline to do it. I'll tell someone I'll do it, but I need to make sure that I'm actually going to do it. So I make it a priority in my Outlook calendar. And that's a suggestion I have for you all. General advice from your new older sister, that'd be me. I've always wanted to be an older sister. Find your mentors to ask what's okay and what's not. Figure out who the smartest person in the room is and learn from them. If it's you, find a new room. Is that you should never be the smartest person in the room. Well, sometimes you should be. It helps, like when you're playing trivia maybe, but there's always someone new to learn from. speak up in a respectful way, and please say, I think we should do this instead of I feel, is that women have a tendency to use emotions when making an appeal. And you don't have to do that, is that you can use logic and reason and your intelligence to make a sound argument for something to go one way or the other. And I encourage you to please use I think instead of I feel when you're doing this. Conversations go two ways. Don't cut people off. This is something I work on. And if you have mental struggles, it's totally okay. I developed really bad anxiety during the pandemic, and it's something that I was open with my coworkers about. It was something I was open with the people who worked for me and my manager, is that I need space, and I need a time to adjust. And I learned ways to cope with it, and things are getting so much better. But our lives were totally changed during the pandemic, and now we're expected to just flip the switch back really quickly and easily. And that's just not easy for everyone. So if you are struggling, please make sure you're getting help. Make sure you talk to your manager and come up with a solution and a plan that works for you and them and your place of business. If you have any questions, I see that we have one, and I've left almost 20 minutes for the Q&A. What I say is email me. And this is all I say, is that don't be afraid to reach out. If I ignore your email, it is not intentional. You have permission to send me a follow-up more than 24 hours after you sent your first. And if I still do not answer, it is not because I am ignoring you. It's because I am super busy with other stuff. And it's just tucked away in a folder of things to do after I am buried from all this work. You'll probably end up having that too. My only advice is get to it eventually. Like, get to it within 2 weeks. Don't let it sit, or else you're going to be sitting on something for 5-6 months. I grew up Catholic. The Catholic guilt is very strong in me. And I will see an email that I meant to reply to 6 months ago. And now I'm like, I can never see this person in real life. I can never run into them. I am so embarrassed. I am ashamed. I need to hide forever. Right. And then I'll see the person, and it's awful. But my suggestion is every 2 weeks, get to your I need to answer these folder. So if you're patient with me, I will appreciate it, but I'm willing to help anybody. And I hope to get to know many of you. Don't be afraid to email me. But I will stop sharing.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, so much good advice. So yes, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. You can write to hosts and panelists, but I'll actually kick things off with a question. I've got plenty, but one question on something that you didn't quite touch on yet, but I've been seeing kind of a pattern as a hiring manager and someone who's working with students. I feel like something that doesn't come naturally to most people is the act of resigning or like declining an opportunity or role gracefully. So what's some etiquette around appropriate professional ways to decline or resign from
Is
something?
this if you're offered a job?
If you're offered a job or an opportunity, yes. I feel like ghosting is like a thing that's happening a lot now, where people just don't want to have an uncomfortable conversation, so they just don't say anything.
Yes.
Not really a great
thing. So having uncomfortable conversations is, if you learn how to do it, there are no longer really uncomfortable situations. There's just opportunities to turn things in a different direction. Is that if someone offers you an opportunity and it's just really not for you, you can say, I've given it some thought. It's just not going to be the right move for me. However, I still want to keep in touch because there might be some things that we can work on together in the future. And I'd also love to pick your brain about X, Y, and Z, right? There are graceful ways to do that. I have also been ghosted by someone who I know, right? Is just no contact whatsoever, which is alarming because it's we know each other. You could tell me, either way, is that it doesn't have to be awkward. I'm pretty understanding. And I'm even keeled. I don't know if I've ever flown off the handle at anyone besides my mother and maybe my husband a couple times. But it's otherwise it's use it as an opportunity. It's every connection is a possible lifetime connection. Every person you meet is someone who you might want to get to know, or even if it's a thing that you like just really don't want to do, and this sounds like a terrible thing, you just say thank you so much for the opportunity. I It's not the right fit for me at this time, but I appreciate the offer, and I wish you luck, and I hope you find the right fit for the position, or the right person for this opportunity, whatever it may be. It's a in a quick email. Nobody's going to judge you or care. Is that they're honestly, people move on immediately. They might be bummed because they're like, "Ooh, I really would have liked to hire that person," but they're going to not think about you in a few days, right? But if you don't handle it with grace, and you just ghost, it is going to eat at you, and you're going to think about it. Unless you are a true sociopath, and if that's the case, then, but I don't think that anyone tuning in tonight is that way. So it's just handle it with grace. And if and again, the Adopt a Boomer program that I talked about is that you can talk to someone with more experience and ask them, if someone didn't want to take the job, what kind of reply would be meaningful to you? What's the type of reply that you would like to get? And then that's it.
I love that. I loved that idea of finding someone older to just act like, and it sounds silly, but how would you, the whole, how would you like to be referred to, or how, like, ask. That's just
Right.
great. Like, I think people are afraid to, but no, my goodness, it's so much better if you just ask.
Yep.
Yeah. And it cuts out a lot of the confusion. So that's great. Thank you so much, Patty, for taking the time to
Absolutely.
speak with us this evening. We do have one final session during the lunch hour on Friday to discuss avoiding burnout with Kristen Underwood from the Fund for American Studies. So it'll be another great discussion. Be sure to check that
Kristen's
out.
awesome.
Yes, super excited. Thank you all for taking the time to be here this evening, and have a great night.